Hello, everyone. Welcome to San Francisco Ballet's Points of View lecture series. I'm Jasmine Yep Nguyen, and I'm the Associate Director of Education at San Francisco Ballet. On behalf of everyone at SF Ballet, thank you for joining us for the fourth Points of View lecture of the 2022 season. We are thrilled to have performances in front of live audiences right now in the Opera House, filling the auditorium with energy and excitement. So thank you to all of our audiences, both in person and online, for supporting SF Ballet throughout the pandemic. This season, we are pleased to provide the free Points of View lecture series on Facebook Live and YouTube. Before the pandemic, Points of View lectures were held in the War Memorial Opera House before Wednesday evening performances. This year, we are continuing in that tradition, and we will offer a new Points of View lecture before every Wednesday performance online at 6 p.m. Pacific time before the Wednesday evening shows. The recording of today's Points of View lecture will continue to be available to view online on SF Ballet's YouTube channel through the end of the 2022 season. For a full list of schedules for this year's Points of View lecture, please visit us online at sfballet.org/events. Before I introduce our host and dancer, there's a bit of housekeeping. This evening is streaming on Facebook Live and YouTube. We might have time for questions and comments from our online audiences at the end of the discussion, so please use the chat functions on those platforms. As our panelists cannot see the questions or comments as they are posted on those platforms, we will have a staff member reviewing those comments and passing those questions along for the discussion. Additionally, when commenting in the live chat, we respectfully request everyone to abide by our community guidelines, which can be found in the link in the chat. Today's Points of View lecture celebrates the West Coast premiere of Alexei Ratmansky's The Seasons, which opens last night and runs through this Sunday, March 20th. The Seasons is a co-commission with American Ballet Theatre. SF Ballet started rehearsing this ballet back in 2019, and like everything else in the world, it was put on pandemic pause for a bit. We are thrilled to finally bring this beautiful ballet to the stage for audiences to experience. Choreographer Alexei Ratmansky created this ballet for the full company and created additional children's roles for students in San Francisco Ballet School. In this work, he says that he sought to give the vocabulary of classical dance contemporary dynamics. Today's Points of View will begin with a lecture about The Seasons by San Francisco Ballet Scholar in Residence Carrie Gaiser Casey, Ph.D. Dr. Gaiser Casey is joined by artists who have danced in The Seasons and have shared in making it come to life on stage. So following Carrie's presentation, she will be in conversation with Ricardo Bustamante, ballet master and assistant to the artistic director, as well as principal character dancer, and SF Ballet soloist Stephen Morse. Dr. Carrie Gaiser Casey is a dance researcher and translator. She received her Ph.D. from the University of California, Berkeley in performance studies with a dissertation on women in early 20th century American ballet. Her publications include articles in Theater Journal, Dance Chronicle, and the anthology Dance on Its Own Terms, and the Oxford Handbook of Contemporary Ballet. She is currently working on translating articles by Soviet-era dance historians into English. She also serves on the board of American Ballet Theatre and is the co-chair of its education committee. I'm really looking forward to this lecture and to learn more about The Seasons, and I hope all of our viewers are too. Carrie, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for that great introduction. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. So as Jasmine mentioned, this ballet started rehearsing in August of 2019. And at that time, as part of my work as scholar in residence, I had the opportunity to watch Nancy Raffa, the director of repertoire at American Ballet Theatre, come and stage this ballet on the full company. Of course, March 2020 rolled around, which is when the ballet was supposed to premiere. We all know what happened then. So it is truly a thrill to be here witnessing the premiere of the ballet on the West Coast and seeing it come to life again. It's really exciting. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 little nuggets or perspectives from my research regarding the ballet's history, its music, and its choreography. And this will help set the stage for our conversation with Ricardo and Stephen. So first, who is Alexei Ratmansky, tonight's choreographer? He is currently artist in residence at American Ballet Theater. This is a position he's held for 12 years, as well as a sought-after international choreographer. And he really grew up in the Russian ballet tradition. He started his training at the Bolshoi Ballet School. He even returned to the Bolshoi to direct from 2008 to 2013. And SFB has the distinction of having been the first American company that Ratmansky choreographed on. This was his Carnival of the Animals in 2003. He also created From Foreign Lands in 2013 on the company, and then SFB has performed his 7 sonatas, his Russian seasons, and of course the Shostakovich trilogy. So as Jasmine mentioned, importantly, Ratmansky's Seasons is inspired by a ballet of the same name by the most important figure in classical ballet, Marius Petipa, who is pictured here. Petipa's ballets include the greatest hits of ballet. He did Sleeping Beauty, The Nutcracker, La Bayadere, and also the first and third acts of Swan Lake. Petipa's Seasons premiered in St. Petersburg in the year 1900 with music by composer Alexander Glazanov. So Ratmansky uses the exact same Glazanov score as Petipa, and he also followed the narrative markings that were made in this score, probably by Petipa, possibly by Glazanov, that kind of indicate the action in the ballet. So both ballets are very similar in terms of what actually goes on, the sort of action there. And he choreographed this ballet as a kind of triple homage, an homage to Petipa, an homage to Glazanov, and also an homage to the dancers of American Ballet Theater. At that time, when the ballet premiered, he was celebrating 10-year anniversary as artist in residence at ABT. The ballet opens in winter. It proceeds through all of the seasons to an autumn bacchanal and an apotheosis pictured here, which brings all of the seasons together. It's structured as an extended divertissement. That is a ballet really with no plot, just a lot of dancing. But we do have little scenarios that emerge in the ballet. We have a faun pictured here with his fist on his forehead, who tries to kidnap the lead ballerina, the spirit of the corn, who is lifted high in the summer section, and then also some gnomes who light a fire and bring an end to winter. Other characters include personifications of nature, such as ice, frost, rose, the swallow, cornflowers, poppies. This is all the same as Petipa's scenario. I have a really short video. It's actually a promotional clip from ABT, and I'm sorry it's of ABT and not SFB, but the ballet only premiered last night. So if you want to see SFB, you have to go see the performance. But this will show you some of the characters and give you a little bit of a visual preview. So as I said, all the choreography for the Seasons is original to Ratmansky, but it is deeply informed by what might be termed Ratmansky's Reconstruction Project. So what is this project? Ratmansky has been recreating many Petipa ballets from the late 19th century using notations of these ballets that are housed in the Harvard Theater collection. These are ballets like Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, La Bayadere, Paquita, Don Quixote, really the greatest hits of classical ballet. For some reason, Petipa's Seasons was either not notated or, what is more likely, the notations don't survive. Thus the need for original choreography, the need and the opportunity for original choreography. But as we'll see later on, the ballet is deeply indebted to Petipa's work, even as it branches out and combines more contemporary movement influences. So the first nugget or perspective I wanted to share with you has to do with what I'm calling chains of retrospectivism that extend from Ratmansky all the way back to the French court ballet. Both Petipa and Ratmansky were acting on a retrospective or historical impulse in the initial inspiration for their ballets. Ratmansky is reaching back to Petipa, and Petipa was reaching back to the court ballets of Louis XIV. Now, practically speaking, what Petipa's Seasons ended up being was a star vehicle for the prima ballerina of the Imperial Theater's Mathilde Kaczynska. She was celebrating 10 years of service for the Imperial Theaters, and so she needed a star vehicle that would show her in all of her glory. However, the origin of the ballet really had its, the origin really came about from the former director of the Imperial Theaters, Ivan Vsevolozhsky. And he was a very aristocratic Francophile who conceived of Seasons and a sister ballet, pictured here, The Trial of Damis or Les Ruses d'Amour, as, which was also to the Glazanov score, a Glazanov score. He conceived of both of these as sort of one-act miniatures reminiscent of French court ballets of the 17th and 18th centuries. Why did he do this? He was interested in this, and also, as Tim Scholl argues, Trial of Damis, The Seasons, and also another Petipa ballet, Harlequinade, which premiered at the same time, continued this retrospectivist trend that Vsevolozhsky started, actually with Petipa in Sleeping Beauty. Vsevolozhsky came up with the idea of Sleeping Beauty as a kind of homage to French court ballets, where French court ballets were representing this golden age of ballet, this perceived golden age of ballet, and became this source to be explored and imitated. So we see a through line in this Vsevolozhsky-Petipa collaboration that takes an interest in the 17th and 18th centuries. So I went back and read some of the scenarios of these court ballets, and it's no surprise that Petipa's Seasons has a very clear predecessor in at least one of them. This is Jean-Baptiste Lully's 1661 Le Ballet des Saisons. And in this ballet, the action has many similarities. It depicts scenic changes, going from a springtime garden with Flora and Zephyr to a field of wheat with Ceres, who is the Roman goddess of agriculture. This is clearly related to the spirit of the corn, the lead ballerina role. And then we also have a bacchanal in a vineyard with harvesters, and it ends with an apotheosis, just like Petipa's ballet and Ratmansky's ballet. And of course, the usual fauns and satyrs and naiads and bacchantes appear, as they did in many of these court ballets. However, this nod to the court ballet, it worked really well with Sleeping Beauty in 1890. By 1910, it may not have allowed enduring success for Petipa's work. The ballet was a critical success as a star vehicle for Kaczynska, but as I said, this choreography ultimately did not endure. Later historians, especially those who are looking through a Soviet lens, viewed the ballet as somewhat hopelessly old-fashioned, the product of the aristocratic Vsevolozhsky era, and its very close associations with the Tsar. So it is thought that this may be one reason that the ballet did not survive. Here are some, I apologize for the quality of these photographs, but this was, I really had to scour the internet for some of these because my scans were of terrible quality. But these are original cast members for Petipa's Seasons. We have Alexander Gorsky as a satyr, Yulia Sadova as Ice, and then Pavel Gert and Marie Petipa as the bacchantes. So now part of this ballet may have already looked old-fashioned by 1907. As you can see here, here's Anna Pavlova as the bacchante in The Seasons. This was in a restaging of Petipa's ballet in 1907 by Nikolai Legat. If we go back, you can look at the bacchantes on the right-hand side of your screen and see their costume, which is a more traditional tutu. And Pavlova is wearing this sort of Grecian tunic. So this may have been inspired by Isadora Duncan's 1904 visit to St. Petersburg. Possibly the Grecian tunics were starting to come into vogue, but already you can kind of see how the ballet was being changed just 7 years later. Okay. I'll leave it there. So these vestiges, and they're really just vestiges of the court ballet, continue mostly in the scenario in Ratmansky's ballet. Situations like the Bacchanal, mostly in the names of the characters and their allegorical function. Ratmansky loses Petipa's antiquated scenic and costume design in favor of abstraction. Aside from a constellation of stars that appears in the apotheosis, there is really no scenic design to speak of. The costumes deconstruct and pixelate the flowers, wheat, and harvested grapes represented by the characters. And so with these visual signs of the court ballet pared back, what really emerges more clearly in the ballet, besides just a celebration of great classical dancing and all of its possibilities, is this allegory about the forces of nature that animate movement. So it really is more about the energy that each season brings, or the energy of ice, the energy of hail, etc. If anything, Ratmansky really plays with the retrospectivist feel, the retro feel of the ballet. He tones down the old-fashioned tweeness of it with playful moments of ironic distancing and very eclectic 21st century choreography, as we'll see in a moment. Okay, on to the music. Let's talk about Glazanov. Ratmansky shared in an interview with me that he has been systematically working through a list of Russian composers. And Glazanov was the next name on the list for him. He said he was surprised that there were no real lasting ballets to Glazanov's Seasons. He wondered why George Balanchine didn't use it, for example. The most enduring Glazanov ballet is probably the best well-known is his Petipa collaboration, Raymonda from 1896. Ratmansky said that the score seemed too intellectual to some people, but as you listen to it, it revealed its riches, and he really took it on as a challenge to see what the secret of the score was and how he could make it work as a ballet. Soviet-era musicologist Oleg Kunitsyn stated that The Seasons was one of Glazanov's favorite works among his own compositions. Contemporaries held various opinions. Musicologist and composer Boris Asafiev wrote that Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov went in one day and watched a rehearsal of Petipa's Seasons and remarked of the winter section, "Here is one of the best winters in all of Russian music." And coming from the composer of The Ice Maiden and The Night Before Christmas, this was really quite high praise. The music brilliantly captures the different personalities of winter. You can just almost feel the crystallized frost gleaming in the sun, forceful winds, bitter cold, hail bouncing and dancing as it falls. On the other hand, we have reviewer Nikolai Bezobrazov, whose only comments about the composer of The Seasons following its February 13th premiere at the Mariinsky was that the music presented nothing of special interest and in fact was boring. Artist and critic Alexander Benoit had an even more negative opinion. He remarked of Glazanov's music that there seems to be no air in it. It oppresses and chokes the listener. I certainly wouldn't go that far. I happen to love the music of The Seasons, but I will say that it's true that in the summer section doesn't have the same level of contrast built into it as the winter section or the autumn bacchanal in terms of just kind of energy and novelty. And because of this, the choreography and therefore the dancer really has to work harder to supply what the music does not. And I saw this time and time again when I was observing rehearsal. The summer section received a lot of attention in terms of music and phrasing. So it really comes down to phrasing and timing. Nancy Raffa spent a lot of time with the 8 cornflowers of the summer section who perform a waltz. And she really, for example, she would have extremely specific directions about what kind of phrasing they would need to do. So before a pirouette, she would ask them to take a breath before they did the pirouette. And then as the pirouette ended, she wanted them to raise their working leg a little bit higher and then stop quickly in a finish, so that there was kind of this like whirlwind effect that then suddenly stopped. So also more bending, longer suspensions, followed by really fast transitions, pushed to the point of almost creating this fundamental tension for the audience of, is the dancer going to finish on time? So it helps build up that drama in the music. Almost even at times, the dancer is working in conversation with the music and dialogue, maybe even opposing it in some cases, musically opposing it, of course. Raffa also told the group that Ratmansky wanted it to look as though the dancers were creating the music with their movements, rather than dancing with the music, which I thought was a really interesting comment. And it makes sense because he is one of the most musical of choreographers. Okay, on to choreography, a little bit about that. So let's discuss this idea that The Seasons is an homage to Petipa. Yes, it definitely is in 2 main ways. The first is that in following Petipa's scenario, Ratmansky's Seasons retains very clear structural elements of classical ballet, such as using a corps de ballet to frame and echo the dancing of the soloists. This is especially apparent in the winter section, where the corps de ballet responds in very specific ways to the dancers, to the soloists rather. We also have the centrality of the ballerina, the spirit of the corn. Again, this is the role that Mathilde Kaczynska played, and Mathilde Kaczynska was a diva, and she would have demanded pride of place in a ballet that she featured in. So she has this, Ratmansky's given the lead ballerina this incredible entrance to resounding, ringing music. She runs in on the diagonal, surrounded by cornflowers and poppies. And this is also very Petipa, giving the ballerina this big grand entrance. Also having a central pas de deux, or dance for 2 in the ballet. Here we have Isabella Boylston and James Whiteside pictured in the pas de deux from The Seasons. And then finally, having children take part in the ballet. As Jasmine mentioned, there are students from the San Francisco Ballet School in this ballet, and that was the same in Petipa's time. These were multi-generational performances that had, everyone from the elderly pantomime, down to the youngest student participating in the performances. Oops. Then we also, we have specific steps and specific stylistic details that are drawn from the notations of Petipa's Sleeping Beauty that Ratmansky inserted into this ballet. And Nancy Raffa was very specific about these in rehearsal. And I'm going to get a little technical, but bear with me. We have a soda basque with an extra bent leg in the spring section, and I believe in the summer section. And this provides extra little pop to the movement. It's really quite a wonderful addition to the soda basque. Also, pirouettes, the working leg can be held in coupe at the ankle, right at the shin, or also all the way up in passe right at the knee, which is standard. So normally when you go to see a ballet, you only see the working foot held at the knee. But here we have these different shadings to make the pirouette. It gives different textures to the pirouette. Attitude devant. So that is when the dancer holds their leg in front of them with the knee bent. She was very specific about this, that the working leg could not be as rotated from the hip. and not as bent, so that you could really see the line of the lower leg a little bit more clearly. And then finally, and there are many other examples, which I'm sure Ricardo can help us remember, but there was an emphasis, especially for the summer ballerina, whom Nancy Raffa referred to as the grand ballerina of imperial grandness, an emphasis on softer arms, more round arms, held lower, more delicate, delicately, instead of extended out as far as we typically see them today. So however much these structural and choreographic features pay homage to Petipa, The Seasons is really a very eclectic stylistic mix. It wouldn't be too far off to say everything but the kitchen sink. But I don't mean to suggest that it's a mess. Far from it. This is really a kind of master's thesis on how do I combine all of these different features and elements of ballet into a seamless whole. It somehow still looks natural, and it looks like an extension of Petipa, which is what's so fascinating about it. I have a short clip of the Hail variation. This is danced by ABT soloist Catherine Herlin, or Catherine Hurricane, as her colleagues call her at ABT. I'll describe what you're about to see, but I think it's a really good example of this stylistic mix. The variation begins with two manèges. A manège is a set of steps performed in a circle around the stage. Here she's doing these quick coupé jeté en tournant, but instead of lifting up the back leg, she's really pulling it in and dragging it with her. Ratmansky then syncopates some of the steps. There is a kind of jazzy jump into fifth position in plie on releve, and then a scoot back on the offbeat. Rafa said that this was a step from another Ratmansky ballet, Songs of Bukovina, but this leading of the hip is really very balancey, and it's really very jazzy, as are there these little turned in kicks that come after it. So let's watch Catherine. It's in rehearsal, so it's from a little slightly strange angle, but hopefully you'll bear with me. So those are the coupé jeté en tournant. And this is Winter, who's responding to her dancing. Here's little jump backs, little jazzy kicks. So the final part of the variation presents the dancer with a very difficult pirouette combination. It was a jumped single tour from fifth position to fifth position, an échappé on point to second position, a jump to fourth position preparation, single pirouette in coupé front that fouettes while still on point into a pirouette with arms up ahead with one hand clasping the wrist. It was really difficult. I always held my breath in rehearsal because I wasn't sure if people were going to make it. This is repeated 3 times and then finishes with this crazy set of chaîné turns until Hail is caught in a supported backbend by Winter. Nancy Raffa said in rehearsal, as crazy as you can make this is what he is looking for, he meaning the choreographer. And then the corps de ballet adds a kind of whimsical Busby Berkeley touch to this finale, finishing in a long diagonal of standing splits, essentially, performed in canon, so one at a time. So yes, we've got Petipa in The Seasons, but it's updated with a lot of these other references that really keep the ballet feeling fresh. Before we move on to our discussion with Ricardo and Stephen, I wanted to just make one last point. And that's, you know, there's another reference, at least one other reference in Petipa's Seasons that really kind of keeps the retrospectivism and the homage to Petipa feeling much more playful. And that's that in the autumn section, all of the seasons return and kind of reprise their themes. And as part of that, one of the spring soloists enters with 6 men who take turns helping her balance in attitude derrière, which is the position you see pictured here. This is a very clear nod to the Rosadagio, the very famous moment in the Rosadagio in Sleeping Beauty, where the dancer balances, it does a promenade and balances 4 times with each of her 4 suitors. This one's a little bit of a spoof though. In this one, the male suitors kind of rush around her in these complicated patterns that seem designed to make her lose her balance. It's quite a humorous moment. And the whole time she just kind of reposes there serenely and pays them no attention whatsoever. So it's really moments like this, I think, that kind of break up that weight of history and tradition and remind us that, you know, classical ballet, its heritage, it doesn't have to rest sort of dogmatically on our shoulders. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can bring our guests in. Hi, Ricardo.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
It's so great to see you.
Hi, Stephen.
Thank you so much for being here. So let me introduce these 2 incredible people. Ricardo is a ballet master, assistant to the artistic director, and a principal character artist here at San Francisco Ballet. He's a triple threat. Ricardo was born in Colombia. He danced at San Francisco Ballet as a principal dancer, and then he joined American Ballet Theater at the invitation of Mikhail Baryshnikov and danced there, had a very distinguished career as a principal dancer at American Ballet Theater as well. After that, he went on to direct 2 ballet companies in South America, the Ballet Teatro de Colón in Argentina and the Ballet Santiago in Chile. He came back to San Francisco Ballet as ballet master, as character artist, as assistant to the artistic director. Incredibly important presence in the studio. I can certainly attest to that. And he also continues to work internationally. In 2019, he created a new production of Giselle for Het National Ballet or Dutch National Ballet. Stephen Morse joined SFB in 2009 after participating in the SFB training program. He also won a medal at the Youth America Grand Prix competition. And in 2017, he was promoted to soloist, and he performs an incredibly diverse repertoire, including originating roles in ballets by Dwight Rhoden, Liam Scarlett, Justin Peck, Trey McIntyre, Yuri Posakov, Miles Thatcher, and Helgi Thomason. Also in 2019, Stephen took over the directorship of Dance FAR, or Dance for a Reason. And this is an annual charity dance performance and after party that raises funds to aid a specific international cause. So welcome to you both. I'm really delighted to be here with you, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. The first question I had was for both of you, which is really kind of a reflection that, you know, this ballet was first staged back in 2019 and then was sort of in limbo for about 2 years afterward. You know, this is probably not the ideal way that you want to stage a ballet, to have it go into that limbo. So I was wondering, what was the process of starting up rehearsals like for this ballet? Was it any different from if you had just left off from those 2 years and then, or, you know, what was that process like?
Hi, everybody. So yes, it's quite different. I mean, for one, we had the pandemic, and second, the San Francisco Ballet administration had us working all throughout the pandemic, trying to figure out how to be in the studio, how to continue with the repertoire we had already prepared to perform during the season, and the ones of the ballets that was not performed was Seasons. So we did small parts and trying to figure it out. Okay, we could have 1 or 2 people in the studio, and then the numbers grew. And so we're able to touch up on a certain amount of people to refresh their memory of this humongous work. So that in itself was favorable because it is such a masterpiece and such a massive piece that unfortunately we're not able to perform, but it gave us time to kind of brew and understand a lot more about what it really takes to perform this masterwork. So, and then normally we have a rehearsal period where we learn in the entire rep, and then the season gets rolling, and 2 or 3 weeks prior to performing whatever the work, we bring it back and we start to review and work on it. We were very blessed to have Alexei Ratmonsky with us this time, but the most unfortunate of circumstances for the Ukrainian war that's happening right now, but he was able to join us, and his unwavering dedication to the art form and to the pieces that he's created with such care and craftsmanship, he came and infused us with the information that we were so hungry for. So it was a big boost to have him here.
Wonderful.
I completely agree with Ricardo. It was, I think, really nice to, again, we have like the rehearsal period and then the performance period, and then it's performed. And this time we had the rehearsal period, an additional regrouping and in November, and then now we get to perform it. And in a way, I think it digested better, and I was able to understand the work more. And I will say, like, the ballet masters and Nancy and Alexi had maybe more time to take more and bring more out of it in the dancers. And to add to that, again, like, as with the ballet season here, things change quickly and dancers leave or are injured or all these things. So it was kind of a regrouping of things. And so, again, the person I worked with originally, I'm not performing with tomorrow. So again, that's been like a kind of a fun puzzle piece to work with, and in a way it keeps it exciting and keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Stephen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role in the seasons? Who are you supposed to be, and what's your choreography like?
So I'm one of the autumn principals, and more specifically Bacchus, which is the Roman Greek god of wine and pleasure. And we are the last season to be introduced. So we are, I like to think of it as like the life of the party. We're supposed to bring some like fun and playfulness to the room, and yeah, like it's wild. That's the only way to describe it. But our first entrance is this big manege around the whole stage, and we're just like skipping, and it's like impossible not to smile during it. But yeah, we're kind of like summoning everyone around us to join in like the fun. So yeah, it's quick. It's quick, but it's jazzy and playful, and it's a blast to dance.
Yeah, it is. It's an unforgettable moment for sure. Ricardo, I remember when we talked a couple of years ago about, you know, your work as a ballet master. I remember one thing that really struck me that you said was, you know, each dancer learns their own part, but the ballet master has to learn all of the parts and be able to teach them. I was wondering if you could say a little bit about how you keep all of this information in your head.
Well, my encrypted steps are in the dancers. The responsibility are given to the dancer, and you can read within the dancer what's wrong and what's right according to what has been taught. There are so much of the visual and the eyes and the ears and every sensation that teaches you how to dance a dance, especially when it's carefully and thoughtfully and lovingly curated, like Nancy Raffa did with us. Something that's properly taught, it sticks in forever. There's a sensation of rightness, and there's a sensation when you go wrong. Something doesn't feel right. So you have to investigate. And that's the job. Through the long hours of rehearsal, going from the first person that we're taught. I mostly handle the principles in this ballet, and I did learn every season. Again, it really depends on how it's taught, and it's not important absolute accuracy, but what it is important is to have absolute musicality, because each dancer expands his movement and his possibilities on what they are able to produce, either technically or artistically. And although it is choreographed where your breath and where your attack is and your interpretation is, it's all within the rhythm and the possibility of understanding how do I accommodate to this dance where, say, for instance, and I say this adorably, Francis Chang, which is about to perform within an hour, learning the spirit of corn and just showing the opening of the pas de deux. We were so confused, like what leg is it begin with? For something that has, so many counts and so many breaths, but there is such an inventive, original way of Ratmansky's choreography that it's intricate to learn. So you do careful studying to make sure that you're doing this the proper count and the proper structure. And it's quite deceiving when you look at the dance. You would never guess the degree of difficulty. And you would just hopefully get lost in the music and how the music makes sense once the dancer is properly rehearsed and is being given the chance to feel within your own skin that you actually own that music, that part, that entrance, that season. So it's hours and hours. I do have to be very, very responsible that if I'm in a room with a dancer that I know the dance best I can. For instance, I'm staging 4 different works at the moment, and with different dances and very different genres. But to answer your question, it's many hours of really studying, understanding, and observing. Perhaps something that you're taught does not feel comfortable in a dancer, and then you go to the second cast in the back, or to the third cast. People have been practicing and going about their way, and somehow it brings so much more clarity on how what I'm seeing on Stephen, or what I'm seeing on Miles Thatcher or another dancer who has learned the same part. And so it's you're really there absorbing the process and how one goes about it and how the other one has great facility to actually assimilate. And you notate all that. The work is huge because attempting a work like The Season, which is so colossal, and the amount of technique and the intention behind the choreography, it is all terribly important. My notations have notes of counts, musicality, phrasing, breath, resistance, looking into the eyes, and expression as love and fear or excitement, and then there's the spatial notation, which also needs to know what side of the stage you're in order for an autumn guide to be able to take a central figure from the center of this surrounding circle with all these couples and disappear out of that circle into the outer circle and not get killed. So
yeah,
that's all kind of part of the ballet master job.
Yeah, well, 2 thoughts come to mind. One is, it seems to me, and you can have a different opinion, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems to me that some of Ratmansky's ballets, really the devil's in the details. It's all about this musicality and this phrasing. And if that doesn't read clearly, there's something gets lost in the ballet. And then the other thing you're saying really, one thing that I find so fascinating is how different dancers kind of transfer this movement that was made for a different dancer. This was made first on ABT. It was a co-production with San Francisco Ballet, but ABT got there first. So it was made on specific ABT dancers. And one thing I was going to ask you, Stephen, was, what is that process like of learning something that was made on, made for another body, made for another dancer? What was it like for you learning this role? And, were there moments that felt more comfortable than others? What were those moments? And then, did you have any wiggle room within that to change things?
The ballet masters and Nancy really gave us a framework, and they had the structure and taught us the steps, and they gave us a lot of insight into what is expected of us. But I will say, working with Ratmonsky, he pulls out the most out of the person in front of him. So, like, for example, I overheard, like in normal like rehearsals, you kind of overhear notes for the other dancer in the same spot, and his notes contradicted the notes that I received the other day. So again, I feel like it's so fascinating because he's really observing the dancer in front of him and really pulling out the most from them. So yeah, it's just and to add to your comment about what it's like to make your own choreography or that choreography your own, like I feel like that happens naturally. I try not to think about previous dancers, and again, like I keep my eyes on in the room people who are cast in front of me or behind me and what they bring. But I personally find that the way I do it is the most genuine, and I try to stick to that. So it's inherent that it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. We have a question in the chat, which is, what would you say are the risks being taken by Ratmansky in The Seasons? And I think what is meant by that is maybe choreographic risks. Maybe you could speak about how this ballet perhaps differs from some of his other works, or just a general comment on his choreography in this ballet.
I mean, his choreography is rooted in classical tradition. Like, it's very much a classical ballet. It's not a contemporary ballet, but he has a very contemporary energy and approach to it, and he adds these dynamics and phrasings and different elements that make it look brand new. I will say, working with him over the years now, he asks for the impossible, but he makes you believe you can do it. So it's just like this beautiful like exchange, and it's again terrifying at times because you're like, I don't think I can do that, but then you do it, and it just happens, and which is like why I think a lot of dancers love working with him. And I can agree. Like, I need to add that Nancy also. Like, my favorite rehearsal I've ever had at the ballet was on a Sunday afternoon, which was like several years ago, but I was very tired, very grumpy. And she basically was like, all right, let's start the variation. And so I started the variation, I did my thing, and she was like, no, Stephen, someone's chasing you. You need to act like that. And I was like, okay. And so I did it. She's like, no, stop, we're gonna do it again. And so like, she was like, I need you to believe that someone's chasing you. Go, more. And then the entire like 30-second variation, she was like, more, bend, bigger, jump, like so encouraging and bringing out the most out of me, the extremes. And so I will say, like, Alexi and Nancy, like, they're very focused on bringing out the dancer and what they're capable of, which is beautiful, and like makes this whole classical ballet feel relevant and fun.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to add something, Ricardo? You were kind of smiling at the Ratmansky wants the impossible comment.
Yeah, and that's so spot on. I mean, he's everybody's just kind of like stunned, and he takes every day many risks. And at any given moment, he just jumps out of that chair from watching you rehearse for an hour, and he'll demonstrate exactly his intention. The thing about his choreography is that he brings every possible element he's ever paid attention to into his choreography. And although he is of the classical base structure in Petipa, he by no means wants to copy anything. He is an inventor of new dance, and his choreography is truly neoclassical. He takes risk on things that were really just out of the book, and you don't do circus, or you don't do acrobatics, or you don't do character dance, because character dance in Imperial Ballet belongs within the character dances. But his expression and his understanding of dance comes from a true emotion. And so there are things that within a single dance that are multi-layer. And so not only is he hearing it on his head, what the actual phrases should be, and he told me, I repeat it over 100 times in my head, and then I get up and I try myself, and then I try to translate it and give it to a dancer and see, and I know what I'm going for. Now that's really a remarkable experience, this day and age, to have a choreographer who is so keen to create classical ballet or neoclassical ballet, because we all want to break ground, and you see more and more and more contemporary, which is fascinating, welcome, and fascinating. But as you mentioned earlier, how the original version was already looking dated after 7 years. Here we go with a score from turn of the century that which music is being nearly discovered for so many of our audiences, who you instantly say Four Seasons and you go Vivaldi, and there are just no other Four Seasons. And when I've asked Alexi, what is this Glazanov music? Why are you been so fascinated? And he said, I've known it since I'm a child, and I know this music, and it speaks to me, and it's one of the things that we always wanted to do. Well, this collective effort and this curation through his understanding of dance history, and anybody who's ever been great with all the different elements, Seasons is a result of paying homage to greatness in every sense, from every corner of the room. I mean, you said it earlier, the children come on point. It is the first performance they do on point. My goodness, Tit Element's daughter was on stage on opening night doing double pirouette on point.
Fantastic.
I mean, she's 12. And we're all just melting, it was like, okay, she win me over. And he is allowing all these youngsters and all of these old timers, from me to all of the current company members, to really inherit so much of the body of work that's been ballet as a whole, and then an introduction of music which sings beautiful phrasing, and he takes the minute in the winter for the women to pique and to walk over the snow, and how there is this wind, and how this air of elegance and passion and beauty. He works with elements in such a way, and then his understanding of the vocabulary, which is amazing, because there is such a thing as the Ratmusky technique. And as Stephen said, we've been very lucky to have done so many of his works. You understand where he's going to, and getting there is not easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of emphasis on not giving up. And yes, Nancy needed to tell Stephen, do it again. Somebody says here, and this is how you do it, and this is how you do it. And then once you get there, there's more possibilities. Next day, and you see it on stage, the company premiere, and the work, it expanded like this. And there was freedom on the way people were dancing it, rather than restriction, because we're working towards style. It's not style, it's expression.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. We have to wrap up soon, so I'm going to give both of you just a really quick question. Favorite moment that you have in the seasons? You have to pick just one that our audience can look out for.
There's one section in it's close to the finale. It's my last entrance, and it's super fast. And Ratmansky like asked us to like keep our heads in one place, like move our legs like super fast. And I'm like always a little scared to do it because I was like, it's like again, like keeping up with the music is like it's like nearly impossible. But like again, it's very jazzy and fun, and I like live for that moment. So that's my moment.
Fabulous. Ricardo?
Can I tell you, Stephen, I love you in the part. I can't wait to see you tonight. In the rehearsal, I thought it's just so fitting, and you did so great. Good luck tonight. Very, very difficult question. I mean, the use of the corps de ballet in this work is really, really amazing. If you start looking at the center figure and you see the corps de ballet dancing their heart out, there's nonstop and they're beautiful. But if there's a favorite moment, it has to be the spirit of corn for it's just a real magnificent balletic moment where all is well and you could just relax your shoulders and enjoy what's coming.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for giving us your insights and for being here tonight when I know you've got very busy schedules. It was such a pleasure to see both of you, and I wish we had more time to continue the conversation.
Likewise, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining. I have so much appreciation for the way that both Ricardo and Stephen talk about the ballet that really draws the audience in to have a better understanding and experience it when we go and see it at the Opera House. So thank you for that. Carrie, thank you for the informative ballet history talk and really both the historical and the artistic journey of the season. So thank you for that, and the music and how the score and how Ratmansky approaches that and draws out everything from his own experiences with the seasons into this new work, and keeping it, like Ricardo, you said, inventive and original and fresh, and the intricate choreography. So really excited to have our audiences experience this this week. Stephen, you mentioned that Ratmansky asked for the impossible and believes that the dancers can do it. And so it almost feels like this impossible thing that we can actually finally see the seasons on stage, since 2019. So he not only asked for the impossible from the dancers, but also like patience from the audience to experience this now. So go out there, enjoy the seasons, experience it in the Opera House. To all of our online viewers, thank you for watching and listening to this Points of View lecture. I look forward to sharing Helgi's farewell season with all of you, and see you at the ballet soon. And again, thank you to our guests, Carrie, Ricardo, and Stephen, for sharing your insights, your expertise, and your knowledge about this work. Thank you, everyone. Take care and see you at the ballet.
Thank you.